How are we all doing? Freezing. That's how we're all doing. It's cold as hell today. And that was a pretty cold performance from United yesterday. Segue. Why was it? Yeah, it was. United twice in the lead against Spurs. United get an early goal against Spurs. Two great goals that we scored against Spurs and two really bad ones. Certainly the first one. But good morning, everybody. We're going to run through the Spurs game. We're going to run through Hannibal to Sevilla. We got the Here We Go from Fabrizio Romano yesterday. We're going to speak about the fee, 20 million euros, and the fact, now this is quite an important one that maybe people are overlooking. INEOS stepped in and made sure that a buyback clause was included. That's the first, I suppose, actual genuine involvement we've heard from INEOS on a footballing decision. We're going to run through that Spurs game. We're going to run through the performance of Hojlund and Rashford and speak about the goals we conceded, Ten Hag's reaction to it. Ratcliffe was at Old Trafford yesterday. We'll speak about Hannibal, Alvaro Fernandez to Benfica, other transfer news, and a little conversation around Elise after some stories broke this morning. But how are we all doing? What I want to say quickly is I've got delivery coming, and naturally, the hour slot they've given me is 10 to 11. Now, odds are the DPD don't turn up, but if they do, you're just going to have to deal with an empty studio for about 2 minutes whilst I deal with it. Because I can't miss this one. But good morning to everyone. Who's here? Josh, good morning to you. Carl, AJ, and Giles. Fred, Carl McNeil, Glenn. Vicky, good morning to you. Andrew, John. We've got Stephen. We've got Shubi. We've got Wild Sharky. Good morning to you. Look at that. Oh, jeez. Wicked, man. What a way to start the week. Start the week for Shax. Shax gifting 5 memberships. JC is saying if it was every, you could wait for days every. Yeah. Man, they just throw your parcels wherever they want. Little cheeky gong hit for Shax to kickstart the week. Hope everybody enjoyed tuning into the arms yesterday. We had lots of predictions going in. Ant, you predicted 4-2. We had 3-1s. I predicted a 2-1 and ended up being a 2-2. I don't think there was anybody who predicted a 2-2. But let's kickstart the show. You know what I like to do. If there's any sort of big stories around football rather than just United, I'd like to speak about them at the start. And this is definitely one of them. Today is the announcement from the Premier League if there's any clubs who have been found in breach of profitability and sustainability rules. And the whispers are that Everton and Forest are both going to be informed, this is from David Ornstein, of course, that they have been found in breach of the rules. Now, Everton, who have already been docked 10 points. Forest have had... Who was it? Was it QPR who came up a few years ago? Right, quite a few years ago now. And they just went on a mad spending spree with the wages, and they ended up getting relegated with... Yeah, it was a model which did not work. Forest kind of tried that as well. They went big. How many players did they sign last summer? They signed like 23 players last summer. No idea. But Everton and Forest are apparently going to be informed that they've broken the rules again. Not sure what that means. Now, times are definitely changing in the Premier League. And I mean that in a positive sense. There seemingly is now going to be there's going to be more punishments for genuine breaches. However, until the Man City case is done and dealt with correctly and City are punished as they should be punished, and until Chelsea are punished how they should be punished, this is kind of a very close reflection to government in this country. One rule for us and then one rule for everybody else. If the elites at the top can just get away with it. So I genuinely think it's a good thing, but we need to see the same sort of, the same, not logic, but the same sort of, not ruthlessness, the same fucking rules applied to Chelsea and City. And they are the reasons why these rules are needed in the first place. Especially Chelsea, just fold that football club. And I say this quite a few times. So honestly, if in my lifetime I could have chosen one club to just not exist, it would be Chelsea. I know there's a lot of United fans that would say City, but for me, it would be Chelsea. They were the ones who came in with Abramovich. They were the ones who just did not care about any rules, just nothing at all. They just did what they wanted to. Hate that club. Anyway, apparently that's happening today. But let's move on to talk about the football, okay? Because it was wasn't a good watch. Not if you're a United fan. From a neutral perspective, it was probably a pretty good game of football. Two really top quality goals from United. Spurs' second was a quality goal, but it was just poor from how one pass. I'll be honest, that pass from Romero was like otherworldly. I know we can talk about how poor Manchester United's midfield setup is, X, Y, Z, but that pass from Spurs was, and well, Romero was 10 out of 10. It really, really was. But what do we make of the overall performance? Okay, what do we make of? I'll speak on an individual basis. We'll have a little conversation around Hojlund. Getting a nice early goal. That is a lethal kind of Van Persie finish from him. It was that was an instinctive finish. You know, when one of those finishes where you don't have too much time to think about what you're doing, you just got to put your foot through it. That's what that was from Hojlund, and it was a great finish. Then we'll speak about Rashford. Rashford got the goal. And Rashford probably over the course of the 90 minutes was probably our biggest threat. But still, do we need more from him? I'll run through all of these, but we got to focus on Ten Hag to begin with. We went into that game yesterday, and I don't think any United fan was really expecting United to control the game. I think the game plan largely went exactly how we all predicted. It wasn't rocket science. Spurs are going to play high line. You're probably going to see Bruno and Eriksen looking for the balls over the top for Rashford, Hojlund, and Garnacho more often than not. That's exactly what happened. What I didn't expect from United was to have like no coherent kind of anything else. Now you might say, "Well, Sam, that was completely expected," but we really didn't have any sort. We haven't really particularly had patterns all season, but it was a tough watch. I'd say it was a tough watch. Now, Gary Neville's been speaking about it after, and this is completely fair, and probably a polite way to put it. Ten Hag won't be vulnerable if a playing style fails to develop between now and the end of the season. Ten Hag will be sacked. Now, I don't think Gary Neville can go as far as saying that on Sky Sports because we know how that headline will be taken. But truth be told, that's what will happen. And I can say that as a massive supporter of Erik Ten Hag. I've referred back to it and I will continue to do it. Carl Anker said that Erik Ten Hag is basically an interim manager whilst INEOS and Ratcliffe get all their ducks in a row. That's exactly what it is. Because United still don't have that playing style. And I suppose the fact that we got outdone by Spurs in Postecoglou's first season when they didn't have Maddison, Son, Bissouma, or Sarr, four of their definite first, probably Kulusevski as well. So that's 5 out of their kind of starting 11. And they still played like that. It only increases the scrutiny on Erik Ten Hag and Manchester United. Now, I'm going to go down here and read a few of your comments out. There's a couple of super chats too. But I want to know your sort of take on this, on the performance of United yesterday and on Erik Ten Hag as it stands. Of course, these conversations move on. They get more intense and then they step back. And that's what it is with being a football fan. Your opinions can sort of change and develop over time. And I've always said that to everyone. Like, never be afraid of your opinion changing. It doesn't mean you're flip-flopping between. If your opinion changes one week and then changes back another week and then changes again the next week, that's flip-flopping. But your opinion developing over time is you being understanding and using critical evidence to change your opinion. That's a far more logical way to think, rather than just being, dead stubborn and just set on a, and that's what an agenda is, like set on one idea. No matter how much evidence is presented to you, it's not that. I still think I'm right, even though I'm completely wrong. I still think I'm right. There's a couple of the super chat here, right? Legendary villain, you weren't happy with Rashford yesterday. You're saying you need to start being real with Rashford. Scoring a goal doesn't mean you had a good game. You need to start having higher standards without protecting players. Rashford was despicable. I mean, Rashford wasn't despicable. I think Rashford was kind of easily as well our biggest threat, which wasn't really saying much. Like Garnacho, I'll speak about Udogie and Garnacho. Hojlund was good, but Rashford was our biggest threat yesterday. But still, I agree. There's so much more that is necessary from him. But to call him despicable, no, I don't think I'd use the word despicable. Personal opinion. JC, you're saying was nothing more than unexpected, but tiny, tiny improvements. I mean, they are tiny. Well, the thing that I'm trying to think of what frustrated me the most yesterday was two things. Was scoring after like 3 minutes and it not turning into any sort of discernible difference in confidence in how we were playing, and conceding another set piece. Like, I'm going to speak about Ten Hag's comments on set pieces, but now let me go and read some of your comments out down here. Fed up having the same conversation, says Stuart. We were lucky at home against a B team. Ten Hag has to go for me now. Honestly, I think the team is worse than when Ollie was here. And when Ollie was here, everybody wanted to boot him out the door. Ollie's the problem. Let's get rid of Ollie and we can solve everything. And repeat, 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 repeat. Oh, how's Kieran McKenna doing as a manager? Oh, all right, okay. How's Mark Carey? Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Let's go on here. Robert, you're saying you're back in Ten Hag from beginning and will continue to do so. Like, I don't think there's. I personally feel that anybody who's just like, just get rid of him, sack Erik Ten Hag, get him out. I think that's wrong. I think people who are, I'm just backing Erik Ten Hag, it's a process. Rome wasn't built in a day. They're also wrong. I personally feel the two extremes are wrong. But maybe it's a wrong turn of phrase because it's an opinion. So technically, it can't be wrong, but it's just not one that I agree with. For me, yes, and I don't mean this in a defeatist fashion, but for me yesterday, I would have taken a draw going into it. Given our form, I don't care about players who are returning. I don't care about players who are missing for Spurs. I would have taken a draw yesterday because we've now got 18 days until our next Premier League game against Wolves. Martinez should be fit to start that game. Luke Shaw should be fit to start that game. Casemiro should be fit to start that game. And then I said it before the game. I said there's no excuses from this United team anymore if the players are returning from injury. Luke Shaw dropping out just before the game. Martinez not fit to start. Casemiro not fit to start. It's not quite there yet. But Spurs being able to do that without so many players being there kind of undermines that argument for a lot of people. And I can understand. But people focus too much on what other people are doing, on what other clubs are doing. Ken, listening to you is a chore. Ken, you see that little cross in the top right-hand corner? Click that, my friend. Toodle pip. But, yeah. Here we go again. Another week of arguments. Lovely. Fucking hell, I'm bored of this. Jeez. I'm bored. You know, one thing I really don't like about what Erik Ten Hag is doing right now is our pressing system seems so easy to figure out mid-game. Like for the first 5 minutes or so, I don't know whether it's down to intensity or whatever it's down to. But first 5-10 minutes, it was good. And then Spurs, I kind of settled a little bit. I think it was Bentancur ended up dropping. And then it was very simple for them to play out from the back. And then United kind of dropped into a more of a mid block rather than aggressively pressing from the front. Okay, I'm pulling people up on this now. Putting people up on this. How? The infighting begins. Ah, fucking football. Brilliant, isn't it? Absolutely brilliant. Infighting. Civil war. Brilliant news. Yeah, I'm pissed off this morning. I'll be honest. Because I've now got to deal with this and just deal with just. I'm normally pretty good at not nibbling, but I can see myself gobbling. I'm going to gobble in these next 2 weeks. Jim Ratcliffe was there. Madhouse. Sam's lost the dressing room. See, that's a good comment. I like that. I can get along with that. Yeah, I'm I'm an interim presenter now. The owners are questioning whether to replace me with Goldbridge. That would improve it, wouldn't it? Jim Ratcliffe was there yesterday. Penny for his thoughts. But let's talk about the individuals, right? That was such a wicked finish from Hojlund. See if we can get that up there. Let's just get that nice and full screen. He's had so many criticisms this season. And for him to do that was, as I said, he wasn't expecting the opportunity. Rashford ran through and the ball just bounced to Hojlund. It was one touch to make space on his left foot. Fired it into the roof of the net. It was a proper striker's finish. And I want to see more of it. I really, really want to see more of that. That sort right there is kind of, in my opinion, why. Well, actually, I think there's two reasons why I'm not worried about Hojlund. I know he's only scored his 2 Premier League goals, and technically, you should be worried about that if you spent 70 million on a striker and it's 15th of January. But for me, number one, he's always in the right position. His attacking instincts from a positional sense are very good. Service-wise, he's been starved all season. You know that. And that is very much the truth. And number two, that was just that sort of instinctive finishing. I'm talking about instinctive positioning, making the right runs, dropping back, knowing when to burst in front of a defender, knowing when to hang back to the back post. I think he's very good at that. And that there was a finish. He didn't have much time to think about, just put his foot through the ball, and what a finish it was. But the thing that annoyed me is it didn't really lead to anything. Man, I'm actually hot now. Woo! Let's take that bad boy off. But Man United, we didn't take that and use it as an advantage. Like Old Trafford should be an intimidating place. It was last season. Beat City, beat Arsenal, beat Liverpool. And we were 1-0 up within 3 minutes. Yet we didn't turn that into anything. Spurs, from that point onwards, just kind of came into the game. We went a goal up against Spurs twice and lost it 2 times. Now, people down here in the comments are talking about Bruno Fernandez. I find it, Mike, you find it strange that we have on paper the most competent creator in Bruno, yet Hojlund is the least passed to striker in the league. Now, Mike, in my opinion, the answer to that is really quite obvious. Right, and I'll pull a photo of Bruno up here. I was going to speak about him later, but I'll speak about him now. Simply put, we do not have Bruno in the correct position often enough to allow him at least a second or a time on the ball to look up and find Hojlund. Yesterday, Bruno Fernandez's mantra or Bruno Fernandez's task was find the balls over the top. Those 30, 40 yards, Hail Mary. And when you play in a system that doesn't have, people are so quick, honestly, people are so quick to say Bruno Fernandes is crap. Bruno Fernandes is the problem. If you drop Bruno into Man City, easily be the one of the best players in the league, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, because he would be inside a team which is heavily focused on control, heavily focused on actually possessing the ball, and he could therefore focus on being in the right place at the right time. But he's not. We have no system right now. He's in one place, and then another time, 10 seconds later, he's 15 yards somewhere else. I'll tell you what, something we can all get annoyed about yesterday. Both from an attacking and a defensive perspective. Corners. From an attacking, I'll start with attacking perspective. Like, how are we so crap at corners? If I remember correctly, Hojlund's winner against Villa came from a corner from Bruno that bobbled down and Hojlund volleyed it in. I don't remember us having any sort of threat from corners other than that. But it's Spurs showed it yesterday. Those deliveries from Pedro Porro were, my God, when your set pieces are that good, and like, this is what people are talking about, like set piece coaches, right? That's nothing to do with a set piece coach. The reason Spurs were so good at set pieces was A, the quality of the delivery, B, how bad we were defensively. But the quality of the Porro delivery was so good that all Richarlison had to do was make sure that he got up to the jump and just get your head in the way of it. The shape of the cross was going there anyway. It was a glancing header. He just helped it on. He didn't have to put any power into it. It was such a good delivery, and all game, Porro's crosses were incredible. Romero nearly getting one, crashing off the bar. United, if you watch our corners, it's like so often we do little short ones that lead to absolutely nothing. We do kind of like really flat, fast balls to the outside, to the edge of the box for a volley that goes nowhere. We float some balls to the back post, which go nowhere. The best corners are in swingers with whip and pace that drop on the edge of the 6-yard box. If you can do that, you're going to get goals. We talk about, football's become more complicated in the last 10 years, 10 years or so. Tactics have developed, inverted fullbacks, different systems, in and out of possession, all these complications. And then set pieces. Nothing's ever changed with set pieces. They are still as simple as they were back in the 90s. Whip in a good delivery. You might get a goal. And they are valuable. And United just don't get any value out of them whatsoever. And we just concede from so bloody many of them. And Ten Hag was speaking about set pieces after, and he said this, right? He was asked what Ratcliffe thought. He goes, he would have seen the team fighting for each other. He would have seen 2 great goals, but also what he would have noticed that we need to, it's been interpreted as man up when we have to defend corners. I think we scored 2 great goals and we conceded 2 soft goals. So especially, they had all the time a threat in set plays. We should defend set plays better. Now, it's all good and well a coach saying that, but it's surely up to the coach and the coaching staff to actually change that. What do you think it is, right? Answers on a postcard down here in the comments. I'm going to read a couple of super chats out and then I'll go back down to the comments. What do you think is the problem with the defending of set pieces? Is it coaching? Is it aggressiveness? Is it positioning? Is it tactics? What is it? Because it's abysmal and it hasn't really changed that much. Jibak, you're saying Ten Hag not proven to be a tactical magician is what we deserve after so many minus fans brought into the propaganda of Ole doesn't have tactics. Now, Ole was a PE teacher, man. Despite the fact that, how many times did he beat Guardiola? No, Ole was a PE teacher. I remember I don't want to go back and think about the Solskjaer stuff. The amount of shit I had to take from so many United fans. Honestly, it's lucky I've got a thick skin. It really is. But yeah, you made your bed. Akash, you're saying, fully agree with Neville. If a playing style doesn't develop in the second half of the season, then he gets sacked. Tuchel's a good fit. I don't want to talk about replacements personally now. But I think Ten Hag knows that, and surely, of course, he does. From where we were last January, post World Cup, build up to the League Cup final with the Barcelona game, we beat City in January. To this January, that's 12. That's 12 months of regression rather than progression. Let me see what you're going to say down here about set pieces. Jonathan, you're saying zonal marking, aggressiveness, and a commanding centre back. Chetan, you think it's coaching and aggressiveness? It's all of the above. Lack of height, no regular centre half pairing. That's a big one. Organisation. We aren't big enough. We're not aggressive enough. I think aggression's a big part of it. And in fact, I think you're all completely correct. Because what is it? There's what are two different tactics on defending set? Is it zonal and is it positional? And play, you can do man-to-man marking as well, or zonal is positional. It is frustrating because Spurs went into that game knowing that Man United had two particular weaknesses, right? Number one is set pieces. Number two is cutbacks. They scored a set piece and they scored a cutback. A ball all the way over from Romero over to, was it Werner? I can't remember who it was. Cut back inside. Bentancur, late run into the box, skip past your man. Onana made himself big, but instead of him going low, he went a little bit high, just over. I've seen some people trying to blame Onana for that. Are people really doing that? I thought Onana actually made himself quite big and he covered what he thought was going to happen, but Bentancur lifted it. It was a good finish. But, people probably will still want to do that. We've not been good with corners for years. John, I don't know when we were good with corners, but it is outrageous how poor we are. And I think there's so many well, let's talk about it, right? Marcus Rashford got a goal yesterday. So that's what he got an assist against Villa, a goal against Forest, an assist against Wigan, and a goal here against, was it goal and an assist against Spurs yesterday? I'm guessing it's pretty much down to the fact that Rashford, well, for two things really. Rashford got 30 goals last year, so the expectations on what he will deliver this year will have changed as a consequence. He also signed a contract worth 300 grand. And when you sign a contract of that scale and size, prepare yourself for the extra scrutiny that is fairly going to come as a consequence. Where do you stand on Rashford right now? Somebody left a comment earlier saying that Rashford was despicable, which I think is harsh. I think it's overboard. I think that's going to the extreme of an opinion, maybe to get a reaction. I genuinely think Rashford was probably our most dangerous player yesterday. But I still think there is so much more that he can be doing. And I think, for me, the thing with Rashford that I'm most disappointed about this season is this, right? Garnacho's 19. Hojlund's 20. Rashford's 26. Rashford is at the age now where people are looking at him. Things aren't going right. People are looking towards Marcus Rashford for leadership, for inspiration, for him to lead by example. He's at that age in his career now where he's on that contract. He's at Manchester United. He broke through. He's been here for what, 8 years now? And Rashford hasn't. Well, he took that on board last season, but he's not. That's his first goal, I think, at Old Trafford in the league since, when was it? It was a long time. I was surprised when it came up. Now, I'm going to read some of your comments out down here. And I appreciate that not all these comments are going to be positive, all right? And I think fairly so. I think Rashford, mate, there's not one Manchester United player who is exempt from criticism, but constructive criticism designed and a conversation designed to point out the problems and say, well, you can improve on this, then good, rather than just shouting angry abuse from the pub. Wesley saying, why does Rashford keep going short when attacking corners? He should be in around the box. I don't know. Somebody mentioned that. Was it Scholes got angry with short corners? I think it happened against Wigan as well. Set pieces. Let's not speak about set pieces. I've got no idea. Caddy, you're saying his body language is still terrible. When he's playing, he's clearly got a problem with how his mates have been treated. And I saw that. And can I just quickly mention this, right? Let me see if I can pull up the photo of it. Where is it? This, right? Saw this come up. Obviously, Sancho's gone back to Dortmund. No, I don't care what he did at the weekend. No, I'm not going to have a conversation about it. But Rashford leaving that comment underneath it has, for some reason, gained some sort of mad, angry reaction. Like, how dare a friend be happy for another friend to be in a situation where he is happier in? Like, that one's a bit weird. And I think that the whole Sancho situation has weighed quite heavily on Rashford's mind this whole season, in my opinion. And I think I've said this before, and this isn't a knee-jerk reaction at all. I felt it for a while. I think, I personally think that Mbappe goes to Real Madrid and PSG are going to come knocking on the door for Marcus Rashford. I expect this to be quite a big story this summer. And I also think that Manchester United, or more to the point, INEOS, will entertain that conversation. Not to say that it just won't be like slamming the door in PSG's face saying absolutely not. And it's not to say that he would be sold, but I think Manchester United this summer will allow the conversation to exist far more than last summer. It's not necessarily me saying that Rashford definitely going to be sold and all this. So it's what I mean. It's hard to even sort of mention or have these conversations because all of a sudden you get words put in your mouth like, oh, Sam saying that Rashford's going to get sold to PSG. It's not me saying that whatsoever. But that's why people sort of are so tentative in talking about things online. It's why Gary Neville right there is saying, you know, Ten Hag is vulnerable if he doesn't develop a playing style. Whereas in reality, what he's saying is, well, Ten Hag's going to get sacked unless he brings a style of play now. And yeah, this Rashford situation is man, across the course of the season, there's not been any attacker who's been good for United. You'd probably put Garnacho down as our most impressive attacker so far this season. And it's about as good as it gets. You might put, I mean, who would you put second? I don't even want to do that ranking. That'll be a horrible bit of ranking to do. We go down here and see what you're saying down here, right? Rashford needs to go and further his career. Different man management. Steve, you're saying that who is our sports psychologist? Because I'd sack him. I don't think we have. We brought in, if I remember correctly, his name was Sasha Lentz, and he was brought in by Ragnick. And I think he left with Ragnick. I don't actually know. And also the head of player first team care, I can't remember her name. She had been at the club for a long time. She was replaced at some point in the last 14 to 18 months. I think that whole system is clearly not working. Like playing for Manchester United, Ten Hag spoke about it beforehand. Playing for United is different. No matter, unless you played for Real Madrid, Barcelona, or Bayern Munich before, Man United is going to surprise you in ways that you didn't know you were going to be surprised in. The pressures of it, the scrutiny of it. And in fact, I would say the only two clubs really comparable on a scrutiny level are Real Madrid and Real Madrid and Barcelona. Like the swings and the expectations. If Martinez had come back in yesterday and made an error, he'd already be slated and people would already be saying that he should be sold, despite the fact that he was making his first appearance in how long, and he hasn't been fit since breaking his metatarsal last season. People would have easily just written him off and said he needs to be sold. They would have done that. There's another super chat here from. No, actually, no, there's not. There's none there. I got that wrong. Rashford. There's not one United player right now that doesn't frustrate me. I'll be totally honest. Hojlund, I love his movement. Yeah, he's frustrating me with the lack of goals that he's scoring. There are certain players that Kobe Mainoo maybe is a player that I wouldn't put in say is frustrating me, but I think pretty much every other one in some way, shape, or form is frustrating me. And yesterday was I think I mentioned it in my match reaction. I remember Leeds playing United last season at Old Trafford, and I think it was Ayling. That was when Garnacho was really sort of breaking through. And Ayling went really tight and really aggressive to Garnacho and just really had the better of him. And he didn't really know what to do. Udogie did the same thing yesterday, and he was very good. Spurs, and how many times have I said this, right? You can measure the success of a team according to how well they do in the transfer market. And Spurs right there, Udogie and Porro, and who else did they sign? They signed loads of players. Maddison, Vicario, Van der Ven. Man, they've got some hit. Particularly, I think, Udogie and Porro, man, they were both really, really good, man. Basuma. Now, Basuma was a late bloomer, man. Basuma just needed the right manager. I think, Basuma was signed by Conte? Didn't really work. Then he came through. Yeah, Udogie had Garnacho's number yesterday because not only did he match him from an aggression perspective, he had pace to burn. Positionally very good. It was quite impressive from him. He was about 3 inches away from scoring a own goal this season. Lucky guy. But Garnacho will. This is a style of game where Garnacho has to develop now. I think Garnacho has been developing brilliantly this season. Really has, in terms of he's tracking back in certain games. I don't think either of our defenders were either of our wingers were tracking back yesterday. It's another frustration towards Rashford that I know a lot of people have. But in these games where the fullback goes really tight and aggressive to Garnacho, he needs to learn, okay, when that happens, this is how I get around that. And maybe that might just be drifting inside to then drag that fullback out of position. Because then you get into the fullback's mind and go, I can't really follow him there because then I'm out of position. And all of a sudden, Garnacho will probably drop into the half spaces, which is what Spurs did really well yesterday with. Porro kept dropping into the half spaces. And United leave so much room between our lines, the deep defensive line, because we have to do it because you're playing with Evans and Varane, who don't have pace to burn. So you can't play with a high line. And therefore, the gap between Mainoo and our defense and the gap between it's just gaps everywhere. And you know what? I don't know whether it was just me. I'll be interested to know opinions on this in the comments. Did you react to this during the game? Were you up there screaming, shouting at the screen, it's a penalty? Because I didn't. And I don't know whether I don't know whether I was just being, I don't know how to describe it. I didn't look at that in the same way that I've looked at other penalties that haven't gone to United this season. On reflection, on watching it again, Udogie puts his hands around Garnacho. It wasn't like a full-on Get over here. 10 points of reference. He pulled him towards him and Garnacho went down. I mean, I don't really know how that didn't go to VAR, given what VAR was given this season. But you know what? I've mentioned it there, and somebody left a comment there as well. Andy, when it comes to these spaces, Manchester United, the space between the lines, how high a line that we can play or the lack of a high line, until we've got real, genuine pace and aggressiveness with our two centre-backs, we will never be able to play the high line that we want to play. Ever. Ever. And we will be stuck between two different systems. Because you can't. Right? Play Van der Ven there with Romero. Oh, man. Van der Ven's recovery pace was incredible. That's a signing that Jean-Claire Todibo would be. A very good channel defender. And that means a channel defender is somebody who's, if I know correctly anyway, which I probably don't, but the centre-backs who can, if the ball goes over, they can run into the channels. They have the recovery pace and the ability to cover that space on their own. Varane and Evans don't have that. And because Ten Hag wants to play with such aggressive fullbacks, ideally, he's kind of having to hold one back. And we're still stuck between two systems, frustrating as it is. Biggest positive for me yesterday probably was seeing this man come back into the fold. To say we've missed Martinez is an understatement of the century. But there's always pressure at United now, but there's different sorts of pressure, right? There is the pressure of being top of the league and trying to win a trophy. The pressure of succeeding, which is tough. And the last time I remember United being in that situation, we absolutely crapped our pants. That was under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, where I think it was in February time-ish. Was it February? I don't know if it was that late. It feels like it was a decent way through the season. We were top of the league. And the players were like, as soon as they felt that pressure switch from being an underdog and chasing that team who was top to us going top and everybody chasing us, we crapped ourselves. Our asses fell out. City ended up winning like 11 games in a row or something like that, and they won the league at a canter. That's one type of pressure. The other type of pressure is the pressure of the manager potentially getting sacked. The pressure of failure. And whether you have the ability to react to that and stop that from happening. Now, United have done it quite a few times under Ten Hag and reacted quite well in that sense. But not all the time. But between now and the end of the season, with Martinez coming back, and he is going to make such a difference. We talk about the lack of aggressiveness. Martinez is everything in that sense. And will reflect on players that play around him. And I'm so glad seeing him back. And it's unfair, in my opinion, it's unfair to be putting that much sort of responsibility and expectation on an individual player. But I have it on Martinez because of what he did last season and what we've been missing. It's really good to have him back. I don't know. Sod knows what's going to happen next. I really don't know. Right? Ten Hag's job is under threat. He could get sacked, and we might have a new manager next season. And it is up to these players when... But at the same time, and this is where I think the conversation is losing a little bit of credibility now. Spurs are playing like that with that many players missing. Like, how can they do that and you can't? And my personal take is that I try not to focus on what other people are doing, but this is what is happening. And I think this is what we'll be seeing from Jim Ratcliffe. He'll be thinking that too. Now, he was at Old Trafford yesterday. Last 15 minutes of the show, we're going to run through all the transfer news. Speak about Hannibal and all that jazz. And also, I want to have a conversation to finish the show. And I might have this conversation in more of a deeper video on Tuesday, right? Around this man. Let me quickly put a photo up here. Which I knew was coming. It's a crap photo. Why is it? This is why you have to prepare things before you go live. Honestly, I know some people just sort of tune in and think, oh, yeah, Sam just does this. Yeah, all he does is come in and like just chat about football for a little bit. Takes me about an hour and a bit plus each morning to properly research, get all the tabs set up, get the whole conversation set up. It's a proper show. I do try my best sometimes. I'm going to be speaking about Benzema a little bit later in the show. All right. I forgot to pull that photo up earlier. But right. Let's run through the Ratcliffe news quickly. Ratcliffe was at Old Trafford yesterday, and he confirmed that the takeover is expected to go through in early or mid-February, which is what we knew. There's nothing new in that sense. But I'm going to run through my lunchtime video today. We'll run through all the things that he had a little brief meeting with the press yesterday in the press conference room. And I'm going to run through what Ratcliffe said about. There's one thing in particular I want to focus on, and he's confirmed that the press are going to get the opportunity to sort of grill Ratcliffe. And I thought that was a really interesting point, right? But let's talk about this one, the big transfer news for today. We've got the here we go on Hannibal, right? Agreement completed on loan with a buy option clause approved by Manchester United. And here, oh, wrong thing there. My God, I've got too many tabs open now. Jeez. There you've got Hannibal already gone to Seville. By the way, Seville. Can I go back to Seville? I don't think I will ever beat that from a European away trip, ever. I still talk about that Sevilla trip to this day. Big up Sevilla. But Hannibal has already landed. And there was a mixed reaction from some United fans because of this. Well, actually, no, it wasn't because of this. My bad. I've actually got that. I've accidentally deleted the window. This news came out from Fabrizio Romano, and Fabrizio Romano said that there was not going to be a buyback clause inside the deal for Hannibal. And here we've got pretty much the first example, first known example. I'm sure there's lots of stuff going on behind the scenes, but public example. INEOS have stepped in and changed the decision. INEOS have put that buyback clause inside the contract. They've requested for the buyback clause to go in the contract. Now, in my opinion, 20 million euros seems like a pretty fair reflection for Hannibal. There's going to be people that are, again, how can you possibly sell Hannibal when you've got Scott McTominay and Christian Eriksen in the team? And if you're sitting there playing FIFA and you're doing it, yeah, it's dead easy. There is zero human aspect of that. However, truth be told, you cannot keep a player happy if they are not playing. And if they are not going to be playing, then what do you do? Now, people in the comments here say, why did Ten Hag bring McTominay on instead of Casemiro? Because McTominay offers a significantly bigger goal threat than Casemiro for Ten Hag, and has done in his last 6 weeks. In that situation yesterday is probably where you do bring McTominay on. 20, what was it? 25 minutes left in the game. United need a goal. Bring McTominay on to add the threat. And I should have pulled the photo up of this. Let me see if I can get it. This made me cry yesterday. I didn't actually cry. Damn. Not enough preparing for me today. Amateurs. Amateur hour. Where is it? That one there? No. This. That's it there. God, this is a really low quality photo. Sorry about that. Can't find a better one. How? How did McTominay not get that on target? It felt like, for all the world, it was the perfect sort of it felt there was such a good delivery from Garnacho. On the money, perfect pace on it. Damn, I can't believe he didn't get that on target. Was it a mistimed jump? Was the angle of his head wrong? Probably a little bit of both. But that moment there is why Ten Hag brought him on. And it would have been justified had that gone in. And Man United might have won that game 3-2 yesterday. Anyway, the Hannibal situation, got a little bit distracted there. I'm not... there's going to be a lot of angry people because people just, as I've said, United fans, like, you need to prepare yourselves for what's coming in these next couple of years because we are going to be selling some youth team players and probably getting a decent amount of money for them. It's been a problem that we haven't done that. So don't make it a problem when we start doing that. Oh, how dare! How can you sell Hannibal? Oh my God, here we go, another Pogba situation. You can't complain that we don't get any money for selling players, and then we sell a player who isn't part of the first team plans for the manager, and we probably get a decent bit of money for him in the summer. By the way, we only just signed him to a 1-year contract extension, so he would have been available for a free transfer next summer. 20 million euros seems pretty fair for Hannibal for me. I think the reason people are angry is because Scott McTominay's not being sold and is still in the squad. On top of Hannibal, this one is, in my opinion, I think this one we can have more concerns about. Honestly, I have far more questions to ask about the Alvaro Fernandez potential exit than I do for Hannibal. We've got a really good crop of midfielders coming through to the point that I don't think Hannibal is, and I've already made that clear, and I stand by that. I think we'll be fine without Hannibal. And I don't mean that in a horrible way. I actually think he'll be a pretty damn good player in his career. And if he is that good, then INEOS have stepped in to make sure that we can buy him back. And I think that's a good decision as well. The Alvaro Fernandez one is a different one because we've got Luke Shaw, who, well, we know he's had injuries this season. We've got Malacia, who's been out all season with a knee injury, and Malacia's game relies on explosive, powerful pace. Right? So how do we know that Malacia is going to return? Even if he returns to the levels he was before, he needed to improve because he was so reliant on his recovery pace. At that point in time, selling Alvaro Fernandez in the summer would seem strange to me because there's a clear pathway to the first team. Clear pathway. Luke Shaw, questionable fitness this year. Malacia, no fitness this year. Might not return. And still needed to improve anyway. So why would you then sell Fernandez in that environment? I honestly think there's more questions around this one. They're saying it's a buy option. He'll leave. So I imagine it's probably going to be a similar sort of structure to the Hannibal situation. Don't think we'll get 20 million euros from him. For him. We'll get somewhere in the 10 to 15 range. Yeah, that one I've more sort of questions over, if I'm honest. I think it could be the case that come the summer, we find ourselves in a situation that we need to sign a left back. Yeah, well, yeah, look, there you go, Dave. It's a really good point. Like, Shaw should have been in the starting 11 yesterday. It was really weird, actually, wasn't it? You saw the starting 11, you had Varane at left centre-back and Evans at right centre-back. You had Wan-Bissaka at left-back and you had Delort at right-back. I was like, why is this all chopped and changed? It's a bit strange, a bit weird. But Ten Hag confirmed that Shaw should have been starting but had to drop out. It's an interesting one. Somebody else who's going to be going to Sevilla. This isn't a major problem at all. Mateo Mejbri is a player who, he's a free, he's on a free transfer in the summer. He's leaving our academy, joining Sevilla. I don't think that's going to be one that annoys anybody at all. But last couple of minutes, by the way, at any point, the bell might ring. And if the bell rings, I've got to go and answer it and we'll wrap up the show. But I'm going to be having, I think, a video maybe later on today, maybe tomorrow. Depends if I want to do 2 videos today. Benzema. Bearing in mind, any striker that we have a conversation about is a short-term stopgap. Any striker that we have a conversation about is somebody who's going to leave the club in the summer. So anybody really can be, I suppose, a conversation can be had about them. And if we're having conversations around Choupo-Moting, Thomas Muller, we're going to have a conversation about Benzema. What do you think in the comments? Let me know. Benzema's wages are going to be a problem. I mean, sod knows how much he's on in Saudi Arabia, but I guess it's going to be a little bit more than we would want to pay him at the club. You know, my concern with Benzema and my concern with kind of most of the strikers we're getting linked to, the problem isn't just the fact that we don't have a striker, as in somebody in the right position at the right time. The problem for large portions of this season have been around actually making chances for that striker. Now that you can look at the Wigan game where we weren't clinical, I think we were. The reason we got a point against Spurs is because we were clinical. We didn't have that many chances, but the big ones, we took them. Not all of them, right? Given we weren't perfectly clinical. I don't think you can be, and nobody can expect your team to be perfectly clinical in a game. Benzema just there is not going to be any striker signing by United in January that's going to get me absolutely buzzing. I don't think so anyway. James, you think it could be good for a 6-month loan? What we're doing here, King Fire, you're saying Benzema, sod knows how old he is. Sod knows how old he is. Gus is saying Benzema, he's old and things like that, but he still has it. I mean, Benzema would definitely be a striker that wouldn't really get involved in the build-up play, but from a positional perspective, I would expect him to be in the right place at the right time, if he was to come. Tarkin, you're saying, look, it doesn't matter who we get in. They won't score goals if the midfield doesn't create chances for them. I think this is definitely worth a conversation to be had tomorrow. My lunchtime video, well, tomorrow or later on today. Because, look, if we're willing enough to talk about Choupo-Moting and Guirassy and Taremi from Porto and Thomas Muller, then I suppose we have a conversation around Benzema as well. But Standard United, looking at 30-year-old plus strikers on loan in January. Yep, here we go again. Here we go again. Hope we don't get him couldn't handle Sam's pronunciation of his name. Benzema? Benzema? Karim Benzema? Benz. Just call him the Benz. Is that right? Does that cheer you up? Is Schweinsteiger available? I swear Schweinsteiger tweeted after United scored yesterday. How on earth does he love United that much? He played at Bayern Munich for like 9% of his career. He absolutely loves United, Schweinsteiger. Also liked his chant as well, because we just straight up stole that from Bayern Munich. Deutscher Fußballmeister. I had a t-shirt with that one. But look, I'm going to wrap this up for today. This week, content-wise, we're going to be having a video today on what Ratcliffe told the press yesterday. I'm going to cover that because I think that deserves to be covered. And I'll speak about maybe Benzema, Benzi, Karim, Benzema. I'm going to call him Benzema. Suck it up. Yeah, plenty of other ideas. If you have any ideas, fire them to me. Make sure you drop a like on the video. Thank you all for tuning in. And DPD never turned up. Imagine my surprise.